Hey, this is Seth Parnell, the minister of Portia Church of Christ. And this is another episode of the Midweek Bible Study. We're up to episode 49. This is episode 49. We're just about to hit 50. We're going to hit 50 next week. And so appreciate everyone being here. I hope that you're doing all right. You let me know how you're doing in the comments. I hope that you're having a good week. Hope everything is going well for you. We, as always, as we start out these episodes, we always want to extend an invitation because we want you to know that at the Portia Church of Christ, you're always invited, to join us. Always invited to come and worship with us. Right now, we meet at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning for Bible class and 11 o'clock for worship service. And we meet on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock for our midweek gathering. And so if you're in the area, I hope that you come see us, sometime. Come worship with us. We would love to see you. I know we say that a lot. We say that almost every episode, but we do mean it, and we hope that you can come see us sometime because we'd love to see you. And another thing that I always add is that if you ever have any more questions or comments about what we talk about, or if things that we talk about in a past episode, then please feel free to get in contact with us. We would love to be able to explain that further and to talk with you more. And if you have any suggestions, if you have any ideas for new episodes, for a topic that you would like to hear covered, that you would like to hear talked about by people who study the Bible, then please feel free to send me your suggestions and send me your ideas. We would love to be able to talk about the things that will benefit people the most, and so we want to do that in the best way that we can. But we hope everyone's doing good, and this is going to be a one of the shorter episodes because we don't have a guest this week, but we're still going to study the Bible and see what we can get out of it. If you have your Bibles at the house, I encourage you to turn to John chapter 12. John chapter 12. That's going to be where we're going to kind of camp out here tonight. We're going to kind of be our base. We're going to look at this passage here that John records in his gospel. John is someone who his gospel is often known as the gospel of love because he is someone that emphasizes love throughout his writings. You fast forward to 1 John, 2 John, and 3 John, love is emphasized even more. He's the one who talks about how if you do not love, then you are not of God because God is love. You can't separate those two because that is at the core of Christianity is this idea of love and this idea of loving not only God but the people that are around you. Your neighbor, your brothers and sisters in Christ. That's always included in this idea of love, and so it's something that you can't miss when you talk about Christianity and when you think about the good things that it gives us. And John, he emphasizes more than anyone else. But we're going to take a look at a passage in John chapter 12. We're going to go down to about verse 7, and we'll kind of backtrack, and I'll put some of these verses up there. But for now, we're just going to read this passage. We have a couple of people or several people who've already commented. We got Nadine Mayland, Rick and Nadine. They're watching. It's good to have you guys here. I hope everything is going well on your side of the street. We have Gail Dunlap, Tommy and Billy Gale are here. It's good to have you guys here. I'm glad to be able to join us. I hope that I know I saw you yesterday, but I hope you're having a good week. We got Nancy Medlock. She's here watching. Good to have you here. And we have Janet Deloche as well. So wonderful to have you all here. If you ever have any thoughts or any comments on this lesson, please feel free to put them down here, and we can study together as Christians. I'm going to read our passage here for tonight, John chapter 12. We're going to start in about verse 1. This story pertains to a scene in which Jesus is anointed by Mary, and some of the things that surround it provide a pretty interesting story to take a look at. Starting in verse 1, it says, 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of the disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this anointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put in it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always have me." And so this is a story that comes across, right after the raising of Lazarus. If you go back to John chapter 11, and just, at least in my Bible, it's just across the page, we see the story of how Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. One of the most dramatic miracles that Jesus ever performed. It's one thing to really, it's one thing to heal a person of a disease, or to heal a person of an injury, and it's another thing to bring someone who was dead back to life. No one was able to do that. No one was able even to come close to bringing someone back to life. Jesus, when he was someone that did this, he demonstrated that there was no one beyond him. There was no him above him. There's no one who had power beyond what Jesus had, because he was able to even affect life and death itself. And that provided a seal of authenticity about who he was. When he said that he is the Son of God, that he is the Messiah, he didn't just talk those words, but he backed them up with his actions. And the story of the raising of Lazarus is one of those key moments in the gospel where there is absolutely no denying who is here and who Jesus is. It's a very, very dramatic story. And the Bible specifically records that after this event, there was many Jewish leaders, there were many people who saw this and came to Christ and started following him, and they became followers of God because of this miracle that Jesus did. And obviously, this was something that got the attention of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they were kind of at a loss of what to do. They didn't really know what to do, because they had never seen someone with this type of power before. But yet, in their blindness, in their jealousy, hunger for power, you could say that they couldn't see Jesus for who he truly was, but they only could see a way in which they could protect themselves, protect their position of power. And so they would seek to take Jesus' life. And shortly after this passage that we just read, they would not only seek to kill Jesus, but they would seek to kill Lazarus as well, because Lazarus was that living example of the power of Jesus. If you tried to convince someone that Jesus was a fraud, that Jesus was just a crazy person, or that he was a fake, a person might look over at Lazarus and say, well, what about Lazarus? He raised him from the dead, and they would have no answer. And so they were seeking to kill Lazarus as well. But in this scene, we have him where he is with Lazarus. He's with Mary and Martha and Lazarus, and they're having a dinner here at Bethany. And in verse 1, it says that this took place 6 days before the Passover. And so this is nearing the end of Jesus' time here on this earth. It's getting to the point to where he's running out of time, and the events that will put him to the cross are going to be coming pretty shortly. They're going to be coming pretty quickly. And as I believe, John, the entirety of the Gospel of John mainly focuses on these last moments of Jesus, on this last period of time, that he has. And this is no different in this case. But as they were eating, and as they were probably having a good conversation, and as they were being someone who was enjoying the meal, oftentimes before the pandemic, we would often have fellowship meals, and we would have events where we would eat with each other, and we would have conversations, and it's a good way and to fellowship. It's a good way to draw closer to the people that are around you. And they were likely doing this, but then here in verse 3, we have Mary do something that is pretty significant. It's something that's pretty neat. It says, and in verse 3, it says that Mary, she took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of that perfume. And we can see this here in John chapter 12, verses 2 through 3. You can see this story take place. And this is going to contrast pretty largely with the reaction from one of the disciples that would come later on. But we have a couple more people here. We have Tommy Evans Tillman is here with us. It's good to have you here. Hope things are going well up in Ravenden. And we have Connie Barton. Good evening to you as well. Hope that you're having a good week as well. But this, Mary would come in, and she would do this, and she would anoint the feet of Jesus with this ointment that is described as being something that was made from pure nard. Now, this was most experts think that this was a kind of it was an ointment, like it's described. It's a perfume that was grown from a plant that was grown from the Himalayas. It was kind of imported into this area of Israel, and as is described here, it was very expensive. The figure that Judas will give later on is 300 denarii, and if you're familiar with what a denarii is, it's something that it was considered to be a day's wage for a common laborer. You go out and you work in the field, you would get a denarius, and so for someone who was a common laborer, this would be a year's worth of work would be how much this perfume was worth. That's pretty expensive. Think about what you make in an entire year. That's a pretty expensive thing to have. But yet Mary does. She takes this, and this may have been the most valuable thing that she owned. This may have been the most expensive possession. But yet she takes this pound of ointment, and she anoints Jesus with it. And not only that, but she takes her hair. She lets down her hair, and she dries his feet with her hair. Back in this time and this culture, if a woman let down her hair and in public, that was one of those things that you weren't supposed to do. It was kind of a indication of only people with loose morals or prostitutes would go around like that. But yet, Mary, she wasn't concerned about her reputation or the perception of her, but yet she was focused on one thing, and she was anointing Jesus. And she comes in and she anoints him with this ointment. And it says that the fragrance filled the entire room. This was something that you couldn't miss. That this what she was doing to Jesus here. And it's kind of amazing to see how Mary viewed Jesus, and the humility that it took to do this, and the sense of commitment, the sense of devotion that it took in order to do that, to accomplish this. Jesus didn't tell Mary to do this. No one commanded her, no one suggested to her that we have recorded, yet she did this entirely of her own initiative, of her own free will. She comes in and she anoints Jesus, with this ointment. It kind of makes you think, personally, makes me think of, my commitment, to Jesus. And, if Jesus, if I was having, dinner with Jesus, what would I be willing to give up? What would I be willing to sacrifice in order to honor who Jesus is, in order to honor him, as the Son of God, as the Messiah, as the King of Kings? What would I give up in order to honor someone, that great? Sometimes we get, we may get focused on, the things that we have, or the, maybe the reputation, that we have, the favor that we have, but it's always important, for a Christian to have that self-examination and to think, what would I do in order to bring honor to God, in order to bring honor to Jesus? The last thing that a Christian wants to do is to bring, dishonor, to bring disgrace upon the name of Jesus. We don't want to do that, and we definitely want to behave, and we want to act in a way that avoids that. But there's a difference between trying not to dishonor the name of God and actively seeking ways in which we can honor him, in which we can praise, his name, in which we can, lift up, the name of Jesus, among the people that are around us. I think we need to seek ways in which we can honor God, seek ways in which we can honor, Jesus. How can we do that? Well, it can come in a number of different ways. It can come in the form, of service. We know that just like love was a part of Christianity, how it's a core of Christianity, the idea of service is right there along with it. In order to be a Christian, you have to be, a servant, and we need to look for opportunities, to serve, as well, and to give, the glory, to give, that credit. We can give that, to God because of the blessings, that He gives us. We always need to be careful not to cut God out of the picture when we are someone who is maybe serving others, or when we are doing things that may bring us, some acclaim or some honor, because we should always seek ways, and like we said, in order to honor God. Just like Mary did, in this case. And this was an extreme, gesture. This was to have something, this expensive, and of your own initiative, just go and anoint Jesus at this, what you might call a common, dinner party. She does this because she wanted to honor Jesus. What are we going to do in order to honor Jesus? It's a thing that we should definitely consider. But this was something that was contrasted quite severely with the perspective, of one Judas Iscariot. And we're familiar with Judas because he would be the one that would betray, Jesus in the end. He'd be the one that would sell him for a few pieces of silver, and he is kind of known as the bad one, of the apostles, the bad apple in the bunch. He's never portrayed in a very, very positive light, for good reason. But he has this to say about what they could have done with this ointment. In John chapter 12 and verses 4 through 5, this is what he says. It says, "But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, who was about to betray him, said, 'Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?' He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put in it. And so we kind of have an advantage when we look at this situation, because John gives us the motivations of Judas. He gives us the reasons for why he felt this way. But Judas, instead of being amazed at this, extreme, this fantastic gesture of honoring Jesus, he starts to think of the figures. He starts to think of the money, and he says, well, if we sold this, it could be, it could feed, who knows how many people. It could benefit the poor in such a great way. That was his argument, at least. But like we said, John gives us his motivations, because he knew if this was sold, to be given to the poor, that he would get a cut out of it, because he said that he helped himself to the money bag. It's always interesting to note that Jesus knew what Judas was going to do. He knew what he was, in the end, that he was going to betray him. He knew the thoughts and the intentions of the heart of the people that were around him. But yet he still left Judas in charge of the money. He left him in charge of the finances. That's always interesting to note that how Jesus handled that situation. But Judas was someone who if you're looking at this situation, you might think, well, Judas, he might have a point, because think of all the good things that you could do, with this money, of all the people that you could help, with this. But we know that his perspective was not right, and it was not in the he didn't have the right motivations for this. He didn't consider honoring Jesus to be to be that important, to be that on that level, that it would require such an extravagant display of honor. He didn't think that it deserved that level. And some people think that the reason Judas had this reaction was because of guilt, because he knew that himself, he would never make that sacrifice. He would never make that gesture. He would never be someone that would take something so expensive and sacrifice it in order to honor Jesus. Judas would never do that. And when he sees someone else do that, it kind of makes that churn inside him, and he may make him a little bit angry at that. But it may have been it might have been other disciples other than just Judas who had this reaction. I think other accounts that we have talk about how they were indignant. But it was definitely something that it was a contrast to what Mary did. Connie Barden here, she says that it wasn't Judas is to consider selling, and that's a great point. This was something that was Mary's. It was her personal property. It was what she could do with it. What she desired, and she desired to honor Jesus with what she had. And it wasn't in order to criticize that, in order to be someone that made that decision of how that was going to be used. And so that's a great point to note, that this was definitely something that you might say that Jesus was a little bit out of line by suggesting this. But Jesus definitely does not concur with the perspective that Judas has, and so we have these two contrasting perspectives. Judas says he basically says this was kind of a waste. This is a waste of something that could have been put to good use, and Mary says I'm going to sacrifice this freely, and I'm going to I'm going to wipe your feet, with my hair, and I'm going to honor you while being in the most humble way, possible. So there's those two different ways, of thinking. We always need to be careful that we don't become someone, like Judas, and we don't become someone who criticizes when we don't understand, the full story. We always need to be careful, with our criticism. We need to be careful when we think about, the things that we object to, and like the comment you said earlier, this was not something that Judas really had a say in, but yet he was someone that was going to, let his opinion, be known. And so we always need to be careful of the motivations behind when we criticize something. And there are times where we need to to oppose something, where we need to maybe offer a suggestion on how to do something, how to improve something. But we need to be careful that our criticism is not taken in a wrong way. Because was Judas, was he wanting to honor God with his suggestion? Well, no, he wasn't. His motivation was personal gain. But Mary, on the other hand, her motivation was to honor Jesus in the best way that she knew how. There was no other way that she knew of that could honor Jesus in a more positive way, than this. And so we always need to keep that in mind when we think about, what we're going to do and how we interact with the people that are around us. There's a passage in Psalm chapter 37 and verse 5. And it says, the psalmist says here, in this verse, he says, "Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act." I said this level of commitment, that Mary had was on another level. And it was definitely an example to follow after. Psalm, he says to commit your way to the Lord and trust in him. We have if we are someone that commits ourselves to God, like Mary did, if we're someone that commits ourselves to him, that gives our life to him, he's not going to leave us empty-handed. He's not going to leave us as someone who is left out to dry. But we can have assurance that he's going to be there for us when we need him. We can have assurance that he's going to fulfill those promises that he has given us. We can commit our way to God without a fear of him, backing out on us, or him, leaving us. But he's always going to be there for his children when they need him the most. And we can know that, for sure. Matthew chapter 16 and verse 24 also says, "Then Jesus told his disciples, 'If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me.'" Sometimes we have to, deny ourselves. We have to think about things, and with that humble mindset, with that sense of humility already in ourselves, and think about things. How can I, in a humble way, exalt Christ, in my life? And that's really the main point, of this lesson tonight is asking the question, how can we exalt Jesus, in our life, and how can we honor him in the things, that we do. We have to sometimes we have to bear burdens, we have to bear struggles, like Matthew 16 says, we have to pick up our cross, and we have to follow Jesus. And sometimes we need opportunities that in order to further the advance of the kingdom, to be a worker in the field, to be someone that can reflect Jesus to the people that are around us, and to where people see the way in which he has changed our life, and they say, well, maybe I need to check this out. Maybe I need to see how this person has changed, so much, and with the good things that they do. We can have a big effect on the people that are around us if we just seek to do that, and we seek to have that in our mind. And so And so this is definitely a good story to look at. And if you go to the end of the story, down here to about verse 7, we have Jesus his reaction to this situation. In verse 7 it says, "Then Jesus said, 'Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always you have me.'" Jesus said, Jesus basically tells Judas, he says, leave her alone. Don't bother her. Don't be someone that tells her she can't do this. But she has done this in order to honor me, because I'm going to be buried soon. I'm going to go to my death. I'm going to go to my sacrifice to take the sins of the world and put them on my shoulders. She has done something that she will be remembered by, for as long as this story is told. And so Jesus definitely approved of what Mary did, and we would do well to follow the example that she has. I hope this is something that has benefited you. I hope this is something that has encouraged you. And we'll be back here next Thursday for another edition of the midweek Bible study. I think we will have who do we have? Oh, we have Jeremy Tucker from the Dexter Church of Christ. He's going to be here, and he's going to join us for a study. I know you'll enjoy hearing what he has to say as well. But until then, like I said, if you we'll be here next Thursday. If you ever need any further explanation about things we talk about, or if you have any suggestions for future topics to take a look at, or future verses, chapters, then please let us know. We would love to hear from you. But until then, we have one more comment here. Nadine Malin says, "Good lesson." Well, appreciate you being here. And Kay Hendrickson, it's good to have you here. She says, good Bible study. And as well as Connie Barton, she says, a good lesson. We appreciate all of you being here. We've had a good crowd here tonight. And so I hope that you guys have a wonderful week as we go ahead. I think spring is almost here. And so it'll be good to have those warmer temperatures and to enjoy that. But like I said, until then, we will get out of here, and we will wish you that. I hope you have a wonderful day, wonderful week, and hope you can glorify God in everything that you